Hello everyone, and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. This week our hearts go out to the people of western Oklahoma, where devastating wildfires have burned hundreds of thousands of acres. Hardest hit are Dewey, Harper, Woodward, Roger Mills, Woods, Harper, and Custer counties. Governor Mary Fallin included these counties when she declared a state of emergency for the majority of Oklahoma last week. The loss is widespread and catastrophic. The immediate need on the agriculture front is hay and water for livestock, along with other supplies like feed, cattle cake, milk replacer, and fencing. OSU Cooperative Extension is helping with that effort. If you can help donate, go to sunup.okstate.edu. Of course, we'll have more on the fire as well as relief and recovery efforts in the weeks ahead.
Things have been dry across Oklahoma, and Dave, there's some options out there for those cattle producers that are wanting to save a portion of their herd without breaking the bank.
Yeah, so the limiting resource is pasture and hay. And so, you know, we thought we might talk a little bit about ways that we work with here at the Range Cow Research Center to stretch forage resources, whether it be pasture or hay. And so it won't work for everyone, but there are some opportunities to limit graze and to limit access even to round bales of hay, and then supplement to the rest of their diet with a concentrate blend. So we can make that happen and probably stretch their hay supply or pastures by 4, 5, 6 times what they would have lasted if they just given them free choice access.
And the theory behind that is to have 2 or 3 sections of your property in a good gate. Yeah,
so you're going to need a corral and or a sacrifice pasture where the animals are essentially in a dry lot. Okay, and that's where you would feed the concentrate portion or the supplement. And the amount of that supplement and the blend is going to vary depending on the animal's requirements and the most inexpensive concentrate grain resources available in that region. And we just suggest to people that they get in contact with a good nutritionist and work with a nutritionist to come up with those complementary concentrates. If we can put the cows in the dry lot area, open the gate, let them have access, let's say to several round bale feeders, leave them in there for 3 to 4 hours, it looks like they would consume, depending on the quality of the hay, anywhere from 6 to maybe 12 pounds of dry matter hay. And that's enough to keep them healthy, keep them, creates a scratch factor in the rumen to keep those rumen muscles churning, just keep them healthy and minimize the chances of bloat and founder. Then they can, after 3 to 4 hours, push them out, shut the gate, and feed the concentrate there in the other section of the corral. You can do the same thing with the pasture. Open the gate, let them out to graze. We've done this with wheat pasture. Folks could do it with some of these pastures that are greening up and maybe have some standing forage from last year that the cattle could still get some good out of. But stretch that resource a lot further by limiting their access. It helps to have the water inside the pen or the sacrifice pasture, because after about 3 to 4 hours of aggressive grazing, cattle begin to fill up and they look for a place to lay down, but they want to go get a drink first.
What should really be in the concentrate that producers need to be thinking about and talking about?
Okay, well, it's going to need to provide adequate protein to complement the protein in the hay source. So if you have really low quality, say 4 or 5% native hay, for example, it's going to need to have higher protein concentration to offset the low protein in the hay. If you have, fortunate enough to have 11, 12% protein Bermuda grass hay or a cool season hay, wheat hay, something like that, then the concentrate can have lower protein concentration. The concentrate also needs to provide the minerals, calcium, phosphorus, and the trace minerals, and the vitamins. Primary vitamin we'd be concerned about would be vitamin A.
And you mentioned the protein in the hay. A producer can go to their county office, their county extension office, and work with that.
Yeah, absolutely. You take get a sample, you know, and we've got lots of information on how best to go about getting a sample. Send it to a laboratory, commercial laboratory, or our laboratory here on campus, and they can get a crude protein value back to you in just a few days. Okay. I think, as I recall, it costs about $12.
Okay, there you go. Thank you very much, Dave. And for more information on limiting the feed during a dry situation, you can go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
Derrell Peel, our livestock marketing specialist, joins us now. And Derrell, we've been talking about the wildfires in western Oklahoma. Any idea yet on the economic impact?
Well, obviously the cattle operations that are directly affected are seeing a number of different impacts. So, you know, obviously we've got cattle losses and other livestock losses on these operations. We've got extensive loss of forage, both pasture and hay, as well as a lot of fence damage from the fires. There's loss of facilities and equipment. In terms of broader market impacts, you know, probably the most immediate effect we might see is the increased demand for hay and other emergency feed supplies. That may actually show up as some market impacts in those feed markets. You know, beyond that, I don't know that I expect the fires directly to cause a lot of market impacts for the cattle markets per se. However, the fires, of course, are a symptom of a broader drought situation. And as we go forward, if that persists and we do see significant liquidation or movement of cattle out of that drought region, then we could begin to see some broader market impacts.
Let's kind of switch gears now and just get your assessment overall on how the cattle markets are looking right now.
You know, it's been a pretty dynamic spring. The last couple of months, cattle markets have gone through a fairly significant correction, both cash and futures markets. They went down probably too low, as is often the case, particularly in the futures markets. And then we've seen a little bit of recovery and a little more stable, a little more stability in those markets. And so overall, I'm feeling fairly good about these markets. We're in an uncertain environment. There's still a lot of volatility out there and a lot of uncertainty in the market. But in general, I think these cattle markets are in pretty good shape right now and probably kind of where they need to be at this point in time.
And with that in mind, your guidance for Oklahoma producers?
You know, I guess a couple of phrases come to mind. You know, one of them is kind of proceed with caution at this point. There's certainly still a lot of uncertainty. There's some things that can go wrong. But at the same time, it's kind of a case of so far so good. Beef markets, beef demand looks good. That's a real key as we go forward. We'll certainly continue to watch that. We know what the supply side is doing, and there are going to be some challenges there. But as long as we don't see any major policy changes or other things that affect the broader market environment, then I think we're okay at this point. There is risk there, so we have to kind of be prepared for that and maybe be prepared to hunker down. But again, at this point, I'd say proceed with caution.
Okay, Derrell, thanks a lot. We'll see you again soon.
The spring calving season is wrapping up across Oklahoma. Now, I think, is a good time for producers to go through the spring calving cows because they're at the peak of lactation and examine to see if there's cows in your herd that have unsound udders. This would be a good time to write their numbers down in your record book so that next fall when weaning takes place, these cows may be on your cull list, if especially they have something else wrong with them that would cause them to be removed from the herd. Culling cows that have bad udders can have a couple of positive impacts on the cow herd. Number one, we know that there is a genetic factor involved with udder soundness. Research done years ago with Brahman cattle indicated that about 25% of the differences was due to genetics, and therefore some selection would cause improvement over time. More recently, Kansas State University did a large study on Hereford cattle and found that the heritability of udder soundness was even a little bit higher. For what they called the total udder score, they found that the genetic differences were about 30% of the difference that they found in udder soundness. And so that means that if we cull those cows that have bad udders, as well as not keep daughters out of those cows, over time we should be able to improve the udder soundness in our herd. The other side of the coin that comes to play in a more immediate sense is that research here at Oklahoma State has shown us that cows with one or more unsound quarters would be ones that would produce less milk, and therefore their calves would wean on an average of 50 to 60 pounds lighter than cows with 4 sound quarters on their udder. As we look at these udders, there's 2 things that I think you want to evaluate. First of all, the teat size and shape. Watch for those very large funnel-shaped teats. It's a situation where mastitis may have occurred, that particular quarter may be infected, and therefore dry. The other thing to look for, especially in older cows, is a weakening of the suspensory ligament. That's that ligament that separates the left half from the right half of the udder. And in many cases, as they get older, that weakens and allows that udder to drop down and be closer to the ground area. That's a situation where when their calf is born, it takes that calf longer to find the teat, to get the colostrum that they need within those first few hours of life. Look at those particular kinds of problems and see if they exist in some of the cows in your herd. And then next fall, let's go ahead and see if that's not a pretty good reason to go ahead and pull her out and cull her and not save her heifer calf. We hope this improves your herd in the future, and we certainly look forward to visiting with you again next week on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Kim Anderson, our crop marketing specialist, is here now. And Kim, you have some good news and some not so good news this week. Why don't we start with the bad news?
Well, if you look at bad news, of course, we've got the drought. Then you've got the freezes and the lowest crop conditions that we've had in years. Then you got the rain, which is good and bad. Some producers that their crops look really bad and they're poor, they'd like to get those written off with insurance so that they could come in with summer crops. They may just get enough rain in there to get a small crop and not be able to write that off, and you know that could be bad for some. You look at the Kansas City July contract, you go back to July, we at one point knocked 80 cents off the high of that, then it rallied back up, and recently we've knocked 40 cents off of that. That's rent our harvest prices down some and the nearby prices. And then you've got the China trade situation. You know, this last week they put tariff on sorghum. Of course, they already had tariff on corn, and they already had a tariff on sorghum. They just added to it. So you've got that situation going on.
So why don't you enlighten us now and hopefully lift the mood a little bit with some good news?
Well, I think the good news is, one, the rain. We've got some areas of wheat that aren't damaged by the freeze, that's survived the droughts, and I think this rain can help fill those berries, get us some good yield, get us some good test weight, and get us some protein in there. And then there's the price. Well, our Kansas City July contract price is lower. Our basis has increased 45 cents over the last month and a half. And you know, we talked about that earlier in the year, that if it looked like we were having a good crop coming on with test weight and yields, and that the market needed this crop, and I think that's signs that it needs the crop. It's down to a minus 35, minus 40 cents.
With the market offering $4.75, does that change your overall price outlook?
Probably not. I think $4.75 is a good bet, depending on how the wheat comes out of this freeze and what the rain does. The real kicker is test weight and protein. If we have, say, 59, 60-pound test weight on the average, if we have 12.4, 12.5 protein, I think we'll have prices above $5. But on the other side, if we have test weights down 56 or lower, or really 58 or lower, and protein, say 11 or less, we're going to have down around $4 prices, because the market just won't need that wheat. And so, no, I think $4.75 is a good shot, maybe $5, and then it's going to depend on quality, and I'm optimistic about that.
I like optimism. Finally, what's happening with the summer crops?
Well, they've increased a little bit, not like we've seen in wheat. You know, corn, Central Oklahoma 360, Panhandle 415, sorghum 350 in Oklahoma, Your soybeans, $9.50, pretty much around the state, and canola at $6.80. So they increased a little bit, and they're kind of moving up slowly. We'll have to wait and see what happens with planting and how the fall looks.
Okay, Kim Anderson, thanks a lot. We'll see you next week.
I'm Al Sutherland with your Mesonet weather report. This week has been a tough one. Drought delayed green up this year in western Oklahoma. Fires raged in the bright orange areas close to Mesonet sites with less than 30% of their normal rainfall from the water year that began on October 1st. Air temperatures Tuesday reached 90 degrees or more at 38 Mesonet sites. 3 sites hit 100 degrees, Altus, Tipton, and Alva. Alva started the day at 33 degrees, then climbed 68 degrees by late afternoon to 101. High air temperatures gave us historically low humidities on Tuesday. Humidities at Mangum and Kenton were only 3%. 12 sites had relative humidities of 5% or less. Such dry air provides bone-dry fuel for fires. We hope the rain is falling at your house. Here's Gary with more on conditions leading to our recent fires.
Thanks, Alan. Good morning, everyone. I'm sure we're all tired of the fires, and I hope by the time you're watching this that you've gotten some rain at your place. We're still having drastic fire conditions. Let's go straight to the newest drought monitor map and see what we have. Well, easy to see that area where the fires have been rampant across the state, western Oklahoma, still in extreme to exceptional drought. As we go to the southeast of there, very quickly we get to areas with no drought in southeast Oklahoma, and that's very simply the areas where it's rained and it hasn't rained. To punctuate that point, we're going to look at the growing season this week, and we can see, again, that northwestern half of the state, in general, less than a ½ inch of rain. There are a few good rains in there, a little bit less than 2 inches up in north central, northeast Oklahoma. But still, if we look at the percentage of normal rainfall map for that same time period, we'll see that's generally from 25% to even less than 10% of normal since May 1st, the beginning of the growing season. And of course, there are those good to somewhat less than good rains across southeastern Oklahoma, but at least enough to keep them out of drought conditions. One of the reasons we're seeing this drastic fire danger is the fact that we have yet to green up, and that's due to the lack of rainfall. I'm going to show you the relative greenness maps from the Oklahoma Mesonet's OK Fire program. This is from a drought year, which would be this year, obviously, versus a non-drought year, which was spring of 2016. If you see the difference in the two maps, you can see the difference in the lack of green in the 2018 spring year and the abundance of the green in the 2016 spring year. And generally, the wheat crop, you can see that very easily. April 18, 2016, April 16, 2018, the wheat crop is still struggling over a large portion of the wheat belt in north central, southwestern, and western Oklahoma. So we have the warmth now. All we need is the rainfall. So once we get that green up, the wildfire danger tends to disappear during the spring, and that's what we're waiting for. Hopefully next week we'll have better news for you. That's it for this week. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
The yellow flowers are blooming across Oklahoma, and Josh, that means that the canola is coming along. You've been out across the state with the canola tours. What have you been seeing?
Yeah, we just finished our last one up in northeast Oklahoma. We were at the Rendell Farms up in Miami, up in Ottawa County, and you know, it's a mixed bag this year, Dave. Yeah. And I think growers that have moved around the state and have neighbors and talked to folks around it's that mixed bag is probably the best way to describe the crop this year. We have some really good looking fields, and we have some fields that we probably don't want to look at anymore. And you know, it's kind of up in the air where the crop is. Mm-hmm. You know, kind of looking throughout the state. We were out with John Damacone on these tours, and he really has had to struggle to find, you know, blackleg through the state. We haven't been able to find a whole lot of sclerotinia. The big thing is canola growers all too well know aster yellow, and that's actually one that we haven't seen a whole lot of this year. So overall, just the insect pressure has been moderate. We've had pockets of big diamondback moth larvae and big pockets of aphids that have popped up here and there. But overall, just as a general season compared to the last couple years, we've been kind of low on that front.
And it seems like we get to this point every year and we have that, if we get rain, it could turn it around. Will the plants, will the quality of the seed, the quality of the oil change from what we see now with these taller plants to maybe the more stressed plants?
Yeah, so what we can see is with that moisture, that's gonna be a tipping bucket on a lot of things. Our yield, obviously, we have some out there that has the potential to still get 10 or 15 bushel. As you move a little bit farther east, you have some that probably has the potential still for that 30, 35 bushel, and then on the eastern side of the state, we're in a pretty good spot. With the content of the oil, that's one thing we focused on in the last couple years, is how much oil we actually have in that seed. That's really going to depend on where the main yield of the crop comes from. The oil on the seed comes from those stress conditions during flowering. So if this main raceme that we're working with right now is what we're going to get, the drought conditions, the overly hot weather, the dry weather, the wind is probably going to push our oil down a little bit.
We've had some freeze conditions across Oklahoma here in the past couple weeks. The canola plant will continue to try to grow even though it may be damaged.
Yeah, and we can see that on a lot of this, and the big thing we've stressed over the last couple years is that canola is exceptionally versatile. And it's very resilient. The biggest thing we've seen is these crook stems. Right. And you see this one right here is very similar to what growers should expect. It got that freeze right here. It crooked the stem. You can actually see that it aborted this flower and this flower. These were the ones that were flowering at the time of freeze. Right. And that's where the crook in the stem is. However, with these conditions, these warm conditions, here on these plots here, we got actually pretty good moisture. Right. So as that moisture and those good conditions, that raceme has started to work its way vertical again, and it should be no problem by the end of the year.
So really, if you have a plant up right now and you get a little bit of rain, you'll get some yield.
Yeah,
more than likely.
It depends, Dave.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, we're not in a great situation by any means. We're in some places we're not even in a good situation. But if we get some good moisture, some cool weather, we could turn a poor to fair condition into a good one and get some yield to save this crop here in the next couple days. And
okay, thank you much, Josh Lofton, cropping system specialist here at Oklahoma State University.
Finally today, nearly 130 years ago, our Oklahoma ancestors rode through the plains to find a place to call home. Now, all this time later, 4-H'ers in Custer County are teaching others about the Oklahoma land run and our history. SUNUP's Curtis Hare put together this story.
Who is Lou? Well, hello again, John. Turns out that my appointment got canceled because the lady who was coming in had a little problem.
I wrote the play Ride Fast, John, and I wrote this originally. A lot of kids don't know quite about the land run, and since we live in Oklahoma, this is a super important part of our history, and it's kind of unique, especially for our state.
Yes, my friend May is bringing some over, and she should be here in a minute.
So we have two different clubs here in Custer County. We have the Custer County Performing Arts Club and the Custer County Horse Club, and they joined forces today, so to speak, to talk about the Oklahoma land run. And so the Performing Arts Club is doing a skit, and then after the skit, they go and they watch an actual land run with our horse club.
And I would just trot her, Bailey. Yeah. I'm gonna win. Yeah, I'm gonna get the best piece of land. Whatever. So we wanted the kids to have an opportunity to just see what the land run was really like. So my sister Madison, she did the play so the kids could have a story behind it.
And when she was writing the play, I thought, well, they need to be able to experience that, to see what it was like.
And is milk coming from a cow, is it cold or hot, warm?
It's warm.
They are learning about different things like how to make butter, how to make biscuits, and learning about different animals and things that they would have had on during the land run.
It's important for anyone to know about the history of an area, especially the history of your own state, and it's something for kids to look forward to.
See how much we changed that now? Yeah. Took it from that rectangular cross section. Wrong. How hot do you think it is in there? Anybody guess?
About 2,000. Technology is a big deal in our society, and a lot of them are exposed to that even at this age. And we want to show them that through 4-H and through other events, they don't always have to be on a phone to be entertained, and that learning about history and learning about other events is actually fun. And some of it, this allows them to form connections with it.
Red Rover, send Dylan right over!
I'm enjoying it, and I'm glad I got to learn about how horseshoes are made and the temperature they have to be burned at.
You know, it's Oklahoma history. And not only is it Oklahoma history, it's just history in general. And they're learning about how butter is made. So butter doesn't come from the store, or it doesn't come from the refrigerator. So they're learning the principles and the history behind where we are today.
Lillian, Izzy O'Glennis.
That'll do it for us this week. A reminder, OSU Cooperative Extension is helping with wildfire recovery efforts. We're working with the USDA Farm Service Agency to present a fire informational meeting at 1 p.m. Tuesday, April 24th at the High Plains Technology Center in Woodward. And if you have hay or other agricultural supplies to donate, these are the numbers to call. Of course, all of this information is available for you at sunup.okstate.edu. I'm Lyndall Stout. We'll see you next week.